You've been living your carefully curated life for months, maybe years. Your calendar is color-coded, your career is on track, your apartment looks like it belongs in a magazine. You date nice people, accountants, teachers, project managers, people who text back within reasonable timeframes and remember your coffee order. Safe people, predictable people, people who make sense. Then, they walk into your world like lightning in human form. They show up 40 minutes late to your first date with a story about rescuing a stray cat that somehow leads to a 3-hour conversation about the meaning of art and whether souls choose their chaos before they're born. They text you poetry at 2 a.m. and then go radio silent for 4 days. They take you to underground speakeasies and abandoned buildings turned into art galleries. Places you never knew existed in your own city. Everyone around you has the same reaction. They're bad news. This isn't healthy. You're losing yourself. But here's the confusing part. For the first time in years, you feel completely alive. Destabilized, confused, occasionally heartbroken, but undeniably awake. Why do we fall for the ones who break all the rules? Why does chaos feel like coming home when we've worked so hard to build ordered, stable lives? At Love Threads, we don't just talk about relationships, we deconstruct them. We blend authentic, grounded insights with robust, evidence-based psychology, giving you the real intelligence on why we connect, why we sometimes misstep, and how to truly thrive when love feels like a constantly shifting landscape. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most misunderstood archetypes in love, the trickster lover. These aren't just red flags or toxic partners, though they can certainly bring dysfunction. They're mythic figures whose unconscious purpose is to shatter your comfortable patterns, challenge your carefully constructed identity, and wake you up to parts of yourself you've forgotten or feared to explore. Drop a fi if you've ever been completely turned upside down by someone who brought beautiful, terrible chaos into your controlled world, because today we're going to understand why they showed up and what they came to teach you about the parts of yourself you keep hidden. The dilemma. Let me tell you about Sophia, 31, a marketing director whose life was the definition of having it together. She had a 5-year plan, a 401k, plants that she actually kept alive, and a dating history of perfectly reasonable men who brought her flowers and met her parents and never once made her question who she was or what she wanted. Then she met Dante at a friend's art opening. While everyone else was making polite conversation about the paintings, Dante was sitting on the floor in the corner, sketching the shadows that the sculptures cast on the walls. When Sophia asked what he was drawing, he looked up with these intense dark eyes and said, "The spaces between things. That's where all the interesting stuff happens." Within 3 weeks of dating Dante, Sophia's entire world was unrecognizable. He'd show up at her office at lunch with homemade sandwiches and convince her to eat them in the park while he read her passages from books she'd never heard of. He'd text her at midnight asking if she wanted to drive to the coast just to watch the sunrise. He introduced her to friends who were musicians and painters and writers, people who seemed to live entirely different rules than the ones Sophia had always followed. But Dante was also inconsistent in ways that drove Sophia crazy. He'd plan elaborate dates and then cancel last minute because he wasn't feeling it. He'd disappear into creative projects for days, emerging with paintings or songs, but no explanation for where he'd been emotionally. He'd talk about the future in abstract artistic terms like, "When we're old, I want to have stories that make people jealous," but couldn't commit to plans more than a week out. "I feel like I'm losing my mind," Sophia told her therapist. "I've never been this happy or this miserable, sometimes within the same day. He makes me feel like I've been sleepwalking my entire life, but he also makes me feel like I can't trust anything, especially my own judgment. What's wrong with me that I can't just date someone normal?" Nothing was wrong with Sophia. She was encountering what depth psychology calls a trickster lover, an archetypal figure whose purpose is to disrupt, challenge, and ultimately transform. Tricksters appear in mythology across every culture. Loki in Norse tradition, Coyote in Native American stories, Hermes in Greek mythology. They're shapeshifters, boundary crossers, rule breakers who bring both gifts and chaos wherever they go. In love, trickster lovers serve a specific psychological function. They appear in your life when you've become too comfortable, too controlled, too disconnected from your own wildness and spontaneity. They embody everything you've repressed in service of being good, responsible, or socially acceptable. But here's what makes trickster lovers so confusing in modern dating culture. We're taught to see inconsistency as a red flag, chaos as unhealthy, and disruption as something to avoid. We have articles and podcasts teaching us to spot toxic behavior and avoid emotionally unavailable partners. While this advice can be valuable for recognizing genuinely harmful people, it can also cause us to miss the transformative potential of archetypal encounters. The key distinction is this. Toxic partners drain your energy and diminish your sense of self. Trickster lovers destabilize your sense of self, but often in service of helping you discover a more authentic, expanded version of who you could be. Think about your own relationship history. Have you ever dated someone who completely disrupted your normal patterns? Someone who introduced you to new music, new ideas, new ways of being in the world? Someone who frustrated you and inspired you in equal measure? Social media has created interesting new forms of trickster energy. The person who likes all your posts but never commits to actual plans. The one who sends you TikToks at random hours that feel perfectly chosen for your sense of humor. The situationship that exists primarily in text messages filled with inside jokes and philosophical debates, but never quite becomes a real relationship. These digital tricksters can keep you in a constant state of anticipation and confusion, never quite sure where you stand, but somehow addicted to the uncertainty. They represent the modern version of the trickster's traditional role, keeping you off balance so you can't settle into complacency. Research on intermittent reinforcement shows that unpredictable rewards create stronger neural pathways than consistent ones. Trickster lovers unconsciously use this principle, not manipulatively, but as part of their natural way of being in the world. They're not trying to create addiction, they are addiction to people who have been living too safely. But there's a deeper layer here that goes beyond psychology into the spiritual dimensions of transformation. Many wisdom traditions teach that growth requires disruption, that we can't evolve while remaining completely comfortable. The trickster lover often appears when your soul is ready for expansion, but your ego is clinging to familiar patterns. They might show up when you've been playing it safe for too long, when you've prioritized security over growth, when you've forgotten that life is meant to be an adventure rather than just a series of goals to be achieved. They remind you that love, at its deepest level, is not about finding someone who fits into your existing life. It's about finding someone who helps you become who you're meant to be, even if that process is messy and unpredictable. The confusion you feel around trickster lovers isn't a sign that something is wrong with them or with you. It's often a sign that your psyche is being asked to expand beyond its current limitations, to embrace paradox and uncertainty as part of the human experience. But here's the crucial question that determines whether a trickster lover is ultimately beneficial or harmful. Are they disrupting your life to help you grow, or are they disrupting your life because they're avoiding their own growth? Are they challenging you to become more authentic, or are they challenging you to accept treatment that diminishes your self-worth? Have you ever been attracted to someone specifically because they represented everything you're not? Someone whose chaos called to the suppressed wildness in your own soul? Share your experience in the comments, because I guarantee you're not the only one who's been both terrified and fascinated by someone who seemed to live by entirely different rules.